なきは不当眼下にあり、実態は飛行場へ敵航空力覆滅の巨弾を見舞う。
Magandang umaga po sa lahat, sa ating mga viewers, sa ating mga palangga. Bago po natin panoorin ang video nito na aking ibibigay sa inyo. Meron po tayong dalawang mga kababayan na sa ibang bansa. Paki-subscribe at paki-pindot po sa notification bell para updated po kayo sa kanilang mga video. Si Helen Sasken from Washington, USA. At syempre naman si Lucia Bicon from California, USA. At sa lahat po ng mga bagong subscribers, pakipindot naman din sa notification. Maraming salamat po. God bless.
Dito po mga kabayan, sabay-sabay po natin napakinggan o magbigay tayo ng reaksyon. Ito ay napapatunay na ang Estados Unidos ay hindi na katulad doon kung gaano kalakas. So pakinggan po natin at po niko ay bago pa lang. Sa atin ang YouTube channel, huwag kalimutan na mag-subscribe, pindutin ang notification bell para update ka sa mga panibagong videos.
Sadly is being ignored. Pick up the morning newspaper, pick up the afternoon newspaper, pick up any newspaper, and I doubt you're going to see on the headline, America at imminent risk of nuclear Armageddon. But that should be the headline of every newspaper. That should be the lead story of every newscast. Not because the goal is to frighten people. I've had many people accuse me of fear-mongering, saying that it's irresponsible what you're doing, promoting fear. I say it's irresponsible for the American public, for the American citizen, to allow the government...
Mere hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces attacked the U.S. Commonwealth of the Philippines as part of its Pacific-wide plan to seize much-needed resources and Manila's strategically important harbor. Kilometers from Tokyo, it was America's first line of defense against the threat of Japanese expansionism in the Pacific. With Japan already in...
That is far more dangerous than the Cuban Missile Crisis, and a lot of people take umbrage at that, especially people who didn't live during the Cuban Missile Crisis and have no concept of what the Cuban Missile Crisis was. But the Cuban Missile Crisis, October 1962, people have said that's the closest the United States and the Soviet Union came to nuclear war. In a way, they're right, but let me talk about some differences at that time. While the Soviets were sending ships with missiles to Cuba, the danger was they were going to run into a blockade, lead to a direct military conflict that could expand into a nuclear conflict. While all that was happening, a man named John McCloy was speaking to a man named Valerian Zorin. Diplomacy was taking place. We, the United States, were actively engaging with the Soviet counterparts to prevent the very war everybody was afraid of. The reason why there was no war is because there was diplomacy. Because leaders were talking to leaders. If not directly, then indirectly. If not through official channels, then through the back channel. Diplomacy was alive and well. Today, ladies and gentlemen, right down the road in Wisconsin Avenue is an embassy, the Russian embassy. Seated in that embassy is a diplomat named Anatoly Antonov, one of the most distinguished American experts in the Russian Foreign Service, the lead arms control negotiator for the last remaining arms control treaty between Russia and the United States. He's been sitting there for several years and his phone is not ringing. We are not calling him. We are not talking to him. There is no diplomacy today.
Dito po mga kabayan, sinabi na mismo na kailangan ay makipag-usap. Kailangan gamitin po natin ang diplomasya. Tama yun ginawa ni dating Pangulong Duterte na dapat ay kausapin o manag-usap ang China at ang Pilipinas at hindi na po dapat makikialam pa ang ibang mga bansa.
This concept of deterrence, mutually assured destruction, is sort of insanity encapsulated into, a couple words. But that's the reality of it. The United States had nuclear weapons, the Soviet Union had nuclear weapons, and we had to make sure that nobody felt confident enough to use these weapons preemptively to gain some sort of strategic advantage. The end result was mutually assured destruction, nuclear deterrence. And this worked up until the end of the Soviet Union. It worked so well, I have to say, you know, one of my first adult jobs was as a Marine Corps officer implementing arms control treaties in the former Soviet Union, part of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, where we got rid of entire categories of nuclear weapons. The first time that we didn't just limit the growth, we actually reduced the arsenals. And this could have led to even greater cuts in the nuclear arsenals. But no, not for the United States. When the Soviet Union went away, we decided that we needed to maintain a nuclear advantage over the Soviets, and we corrupted the concept of arms control. We withdrew from arms control treaties like the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, which gave mutually assured destruction its teeth. See, without ballistic missile defense, the missiles will hit their target, which means that if you go to war, your missiles will hit the target they're aimed at, the missiles aimed at you will hit the target. Under George W. Bush, we decided we didn't want any missiles to hit America.